Welcome to ReikiCafe Radio. I am back with a special guest. I am bringing on today Alexandra Omania. She is a breathwork practitioner, a trance breathwork practitioner that Izzy and I, so Isabel Wells, part of ReikiCafe Radio, who we often have hosting some of our shows, she and I both met Alexandria at a retreat last summer, and both of our minds were blown. We were so happy and joyous and grateful for the experience that we had, that we're in the process of creating our own retreat for next summer in Bozeman, Montana. And we were like, we know exactly who we want to come on as a guest presenter to offer this trance breathwork. And that's Alexandria. And so thank you so much for coming on the show today. I can't wait to get into this conversation about our stories, about how breathwork has changed your life and how you bring it to the world. Like, I want to know all of the things. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so fun to meet you last summer. And I feel like we both, Izzy and I both kind of presented really in our fullness during the breathwork session. And but before we get into that, I would really love to know a little bit about your story. I know that you recently moved from Big Sky, which isn't too far away from Bozeman, up to Bozeman. And there's been a lot of transition going on in your life. And I'd love to know, how's that going for you?
If you asked me that question, let's see, 5 months ago, I would have said, yeah, no, it's going horribly. But now that all the pieces have kind of moved around and come into place, the transition has become actually quite beautiful. Yeah, because I get to do things like this. I made space in my life to meet people who are really working on elevating their consciousness and frequency. So yeah, it's going really good.
I love that. I'm glad to hear that it kind of turned a corner. Like, I know that oftentimes when we're in that place of surrender, of letting go from attachment and letting go of the past, what we have, gotten into the groove of our lifestyle and going, this isn't working for us anymore. This isn't feeling right. And that shedding of can be a great deal of emotional and psychic work happening. And to come into that place of the empowerment of like, okay, now I'm in the flow of things that are meant to be for me, not just the groove, but I'm in the flow. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what, I owned a restaurant up in Big Sky for 17 years, and I had been there for 22 years. And so my whole identity was wrapped around being a chef. Chef Alex owns the Lotus Pad, and everywhere I went in Big Sky, everybody knew who I was. And it felt like I had at that time a purpose. And my purpose was, in hindsight, now I can see, it was very egocentric and very driven by a title, and I think once I started learning all these different modalities to help heal the wounds inside me, I started realizing like, wow, I can see myself, like I can actually see who I am without the chef's coat and all these labels and titles and all these traumas. And I'm peeling back all these onion layers and discovering the essence of me and how my how my expression looks without all of these other titles, and
Right.
yeah, and breath work was one of those things that really got me feeling into my body and understanding that feelings aren't like words. Feelings are actually, physical.
Yeah.
And that really triggered me to want to help other people. Yeah, it gave me a purpose.
Totally. So
Yeah.
was your journey kind of like finding that somatic place of healing, and then like tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I would say maybe eight years ago when I got divorced, that was a very big trauma. And I had already started learning a few metaphysical things and doing yoga and things like that. But that was a big trauma, and I didn't know what to do. It was a crisis, and because then that's another identity, I'm a wife, I'm a
Right.
mother, I'm married, and I think I was desperate. I was totally desperate to find something to fix me. And I was sourcing out. Like, where do I go? I'm going to learn yoga. I'm going to learn Reiki. I'm going to learn all these things. I went to a retreat in Costa Rica, and I was so in a bad place. And this woman was there teaching Kundalini yoga, and that was really what got me into feeling my body. And once I started focusing on that, it took me out of here, out of my head.
Right.
And the more and more I started doing that, and I thought like, oh yeah, I'm on a path. I got this. I was like kind of a little bit of spiritual arrogance.
Hmm.
And then, fast forward of doing that for a while, and then running the restaurant by myself, and then growing it into a larger location, and taking like tripling the size of my restaurant. All those things were like, there was a height of it where I was like, I'm on my game, and I'm healed, and then I thought like, okay, I need to be a better boss. It kind of started there. I need to be a better boss. So I started doing all these trainings of like communications and how to be a leader. And that led me into the world of NLP.
Hmm.
And I found an amazing teacher. And NLP is, for people that don't know, is Neuro Linguistic Programming. I found a teacher, and I ended up spending about 3 years with her doing, getting in her program, the master certification for NLP and clinical hypnotherapy. And she did Reiki levels 1 and 2. And she really has been a mentor to me and taught me so much. But it was in that world, the world of the mind and the psyche and the language, where it really helped crack me open and get into the real meat and bones of
Yeah,
trauma. Yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that because I feel like I hit a huge shift in my own training once I brought in NLP, when I brought in hypnosis, when I brought in those things, because it's like, it all comes down to what is your mind doing? What's the mindset here? And how can we recognize where we're self-sabotaging, where we're holding
Yeah.
ourselves back from our full potential? And I love how NLP is set up to reveal those blocks that we create for ourselves.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because in order to be really good at it, you have to listen really well. And in order to listen really well to others, you have to listen really well to yourself. And so that was, there was a really challenging period of time where I would work with people in the NLP, with the NLP model, and I would be listening to my inner speak, like, you're not good
Mhm.
at this. Who do you think you are? They don't believe you. And then I'm also having to listen to the person telling me what they need help with,
Right.
and I was like, consciously incompetent.
Mm.
And,
Hmm.
and you're wanting, like, you want to get to being unconsciously competent. Like, you don't have to think about being, like, what the things you're doing, and being competent. Like, it just comes instinctually and naturally. And so, yeah, the NLP world really shifted for me. And then I went to a retreat. I did a program through Aubrey Marcus called Fit for Service. And I did breath work for the first time when I did that a couple of years ago. And that really just, I was like, oh, a whole nother layer of healing, like, now we get to kind of play around with, maybe more metaphysics,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it feels like we have the NLP with like, here, let's heal the mind. And now when you enter into breath work, it's like, okay, let's heal the body, the somatic piece
yeah,
of it. And I feel like breath in and of itself is such a healing component when we can recognize the breath flow and where are we holding tension and what are we locking in. And it's not by like processing it with the mind. The body is literally storing trauma within it.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like so people will be grabbing parts of their body in breath work, a shoulder and rolling it. And in there, after people that have done breath work for the first time, right? And afterwards we're talking about it and they're like, yeah, my shoulder hurt, and further discussion, we start going into, okay, well, what is that telling you? What's the first thing you think of? Or I look in a fun little book I have that kind of correlates emotional states with physical ailments, and it's really fascinating what comes up for people, like, I don't know, like shoulders are holding your head and your head is your world. So it's kind of like, do you feel like you're holding too much in your world? Like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders,
Absolutely.
and there's all these kinds of questions. And when we get into the somatic expressions part, it's like, well, that's energy that needs to get moved. So if you add oxygen to movement, you're healing and moving. You're healing and moving this stuck energy. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I just love the possibility of what is like the potential of what can come up in a breathwork session is so vast. You
Yeah.
never know
It's
what the
different.
experience is going to be like.
Yeah. And what I'm noticing is, because I've got people now that have been coming quite often, they're starting to make space now. They've moved a lot of trauma out. And now when they come into breath work, they're making space and they're having these like mystical experiences.
Yeah.
They're seeing their higher self, or they're seeing like relatives, or they're able to have a clearer channel.
Yes.
And I think that's one of my missions, is to help people kind of get more clarity so they can increase their frequency to match that of the earth, because that's raising. you know
Yeah.
Human resonance is raising, and it's like, if we're not raising with it, I think that can be painful for people in a variety of ways.
Yes. Yeah. I love that connection to, we're earthlings connected with the earth, and we've got to change with the earth and raise that frequency up. And, I remember in our session, like I know it was last summer, but I was like, I was there. I was in that place of connecting with spiritual celestial beings who were like communicating with me. And it's just that it reminded me so much of plant medicine ceremony work. But
Yeah.
there was such a difference in that I didn't have to partake in anything. And I think that's why I fell in love with breath work so much, is like I'm in control at any time. I can change my breath and I can come back down energetically.
Yes. Yeah, and then in the process of that, you're training your nervous system that the mind is in charge, and the nervous system isn't in charge of the mind. And because people, I think, often go throughout their life saying, like, oh, I got so many things to do, and oh, this happened to me, and I don't know why everything sucks, or whatever that might look like. But really, it's that your nervous system doesn't know what to do. Your body doesn't know what to do with all that energy, and your nervous system is just like totally dysregulated, and you're in the story of it all instead of realizing how powerful our minds are, and that the mind is capable of controlling all
Yes.
of it, and yeah. So I think breath work really teaches the nervous system that the brain is in charge, that you're in charge, you are in charge of it, you know
Yeah. Yeah. And, so when you're having that, tell us a little bit about what breath work actually looks like for someone who's never experienced breath work sessions before, or a group experience of breath work. we're calling it trance breathwork for a reason. So it's not just like, oh, we're all going to sit and meditate and breathe. It's so much more than that. Can you kind of help fill in the gaps for our listeners?
Sure, yeah. So basically, for people that are listening, if you go online, you can Google holotropic breathwork. And Stanislav Grof is kind of he's kind of the guru that brought this to the mainstream, this shamanic breathing. And basically, in breath work, we are breathing a lot of oxygen into our bodies, and we're accessing in our lungs, we're accessing DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is naturally in our lungs. And this is the same chemical that comes from ayahuasca and other psychedelics. And so we are accessing very small amounts of it through through oxygenating. And basically, a session, when you come in, I do private sessions and then group sessions. In the group setting, I really love that because it's powerful. There's a lot of energy, and we're all collectively joining in on that, and it makes it just so much more powerful. But yeah, so we're all breathing to music, and the music is very evocative. And then the way I like to do it, and the way I was taught with somatic breath work, Stephen Jaggers, who was the guy who taught me, basically you breathe for 8 minutes or 15 minutes. In the group setting, it's 15 minutes, maybe a little more or less. And then we hold the breath. And when you're holding your breath, your body is filled with so much oxygen. It's an opportunity to just feel. And you're having all these feelings in your body that you don't normally have every day. You're physically tingling all over. I think that's pretty fair to say everybody goes through that. But also, you're exploring an altered state of consciousness sometimes, most likely, and you're feeling. So you have these two things working together, and they're kind of just heightening the experience of being human.
Yeah.
And it makes it like, I feel like I hear this all the time. People are like, I had no idea that my body could do that. And I also figured out a lot of shit in my life, that wasn't working for me,
Yeah.
and it's so I kind of like to think, it's like you're making space to allow energy to come through so you can receive information,
Yes.
you know.
It's
But
giving
yeah,
that, it's creating that sacred container within your physical body to allow what needs to come up to come up.
yeah.
Yeah.
And in the group settings, it is like you said, ceremonial. So, there's music, and there's meditation. And I've really, since you came to mind last summer, have leaned into a lot of frequency um, stuff and sound bowls and creating a frequency experience at the end. Um, so I really love that because it kind of gets the room into resonance, you know,
Ooh, that sounds
and
juicy.
it's so juicy. And then, we're just so much more powerful when we're all in resonance and we are all doing something with a fairly similar intention, to elevate,
Yeah.
to, increase the frequency. Yeah.
And so one of the things I want to also let our listeners know is that you have a little nest, if you will. Like you're on your own mat, you know that like this is your safe space, this is your container. So there's not like interactions with others.
No.
And
Yeah.
so you can really be in that, this is my container to do this work. And I can go as deep as I allow myself to go. And I think that's where it just it feels so amazing because you're giving your body the opportunity to allow it to experience this alternate state and really have it reveal whatever needs to come up.
Yeah. And, and everybody's at different levels, and some
Yeah.
people express more than others. And it takes people, I think, a few sessions sometimes to feel comfortable in that, because the program is so deep, we're not allowed to express ourselves, when you're a little kid, your parents and your teachers and everyone around is like, you can't throw that temper tantrum. That's not acceptable. That's not okay. Don't do that, and it's just a little kid getting energy out,
Yeah.
and that's really all it is. And what ends up becoming really fun for me to witness is when people discover that and then they allow themselves to just express. And it looks, I mean, I have a guy that came to one of my last workshops and he laughed almost the whole time, but it was like this laugh that was like, um, it sounded fake, but it wasn't. He was an older guy and his laugh was like, and it kind of brought joy into the room, and people that were processing things could take a little break and when he laughed, and then they would start laughing, and then at one point the whole room erupted and started laughing, and that energy is just beautiful, it really is.
I
And
love
sometimes,
that. That just makes me want to giggle too. And I think that's it. It's that, we've been so stuck in the modern world of like, this is the way adults should present. And
yeah,
right. And now we have this
yeah,
opportunity to express. And I really want to hone in on that word is, is that when we have the capacity and the encouragement to express however our body needs, it can show up in a lot of different ways. It can be I'm lying still, or it can be like I'm moaning, or I'm moving my body. I'm moving, I'm stretching. Like maybe when you're doing this work, you really do feel that ailment come up that you weren't even expecting, that jolts of pain, and you're just recognizing and stretching it out and breathing into it. And I just love that you don't have very many opportunities as adults to just be like, here's a space where it's all okay. The only rule is you get to stay on your mat and your nest or whatever it may be, to have the
yeah,
container,
yeah,
and it's all okay.
right, yeah. I mean, I think you nailed it. It's like we really don't have, you know, a lot of spaces to do that. And it's funny because since I've learned how to move energy when something's upsetting me, I try to do it immediately. Like a guy yelled at me the other day when I was driving, and he was just an angry driver. And it kind of got me really pissed. I was just like, oh God. And then I felt it all in here. And then I'm driving and I'm just like shaking, and I'm driving and shaking. And I was thinking, like, man, wouldn't it be just amazing if we could just do this in the world instead of yelling at each other? Like the minute or if we did yell at each other, that everybody realizes that it's in your body, and like shake it off or whatever, scream it out, or,
Yeah.
like, but in a way that's like where you're not screaming at someone. And you were talking about the word express. Well, it's, pressurize,
Mhm.
get the pressure out, express, you're pressed down, get it out,
Yeah.
and I feel like we need so much of that right now because people just they don't know that it's okay. They
Right.
just don't. And it
Right.
is. It's okay to be a kid, you know?
Yeah.
We're all children. We are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And which is one of the reasons why part of our retreat, we have a whole childhood, inner child playtime is what I'm calling it. Because I think
Love
that's
it.
it. Like can we wake up to our natural state again? And our inner child has the key to that, right? Our body is
Right.
holding so much, which is why we need the breath work so we can have a safe place to release and let it go. And then having the retreat is just kind of like, here's your integration space. Like,
Right.
let's come into that and own it. Like, who are we? If we let all of this stuff go and recognize this is how our inner child wants to play and laugh and enjoy and express themselves, and this is how the body wants to do it. So then what's the next piece? Like it's all available once we can come into into our home of our soul, of going, like, we can recognize our passion and our purpose and our higher self and connect with the earth and the cosmos and all of it.
Yeah, right. And I think breath work helps make space for that because, you know, it's like I like to describe it like your bottle, and your bottle can only be filled with so much. And when your bottle is filled to the top and can't be filled anymore, you have to let some of it go so you can fill it with other things, new things, you
Yeah.
know. And I think even in the spiritual world, you know, people are like learn, 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 learn. And somebody said this to me recently and it really resonated, you know, information is light. And you take a lot of light in, too much light in, it has nowhere to move, then it's chaos. And when you have chaos, that's not good for anybody. So taking information and being able to move it out and use it and express it however that looks for you, because I know a lot of people that are transitioning into you know, more of a holistic wellness, in the holistic wellness space, but they're afraid. You know, they're like, I'm afraid, I don't know if I know enough. And but then their lives are chaotic. And I'm like, it's because you're learning too much and you're not, you learn when you teach, you know,
Mhm.
that's how I like to see it. And I kind of jumped right into breath work because, you know, I knew that I had to. And it was beautiful because it felt really natural once I did it. And and then I'm watching people make space in their bottles and create things now. Like I have a few people I'm just watching them blossom right
Yes.
before my very eyes. And I mean, they do other things besides breath work, but I can see how they're blossoming even in breath work, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's it. Like, as healing practitioners with multiple modalities at our tool fingertips, it's really beautiful to be able to support our clients, our students, whoever they may be, and watch them move from a place of struggle, a place of chaos, a place of like, what do I do now? I'm trying to move through it. And it's that trying, like a quote unquote
Right.
trying, like,
Yeah.
is almost egoic and going, you have to let it go and just welcome in the beingness to being
Yeah.
as and remembering. And I want to almost hyphenate that word, remember
Yeah.
who we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
as
I do
spiritual
that.
beings, right?
Yeah. Bringing the parts back, remembering. Yeah. It's true. And it's, there's such a beautiful movement happening right now. I mean, it's quite amazing to see so many people, um, yeah, making space by healing all those traumas and all those parts that they don't need anymore. And then to be able to go into your family's lineage and do it also, you know, once you make enough space in your being, then you can start to help heal the lineage, and then you're setting it up for the future, you know. It's really
Exactly.
beautiful. Yeah. And
Exactly. And
yeah, and one thing I'll say too about breath work that's awesome is it really um it's very user friendly, you know. It's user friendly to people who don't really, who are afraid or don't really want to quite take a leap into, you know, maybe doing Reiki or, you know, or I don't know. I just, it's a very easy thing, I think, to like to do, that
yeah, I think it's
simple
like
to
that really,
explain.
it's a lovely step if you are interested in plant medicine or sacred medicine, and yet you're not ready for that, right? You
Yeah,
want something like
exactly.
and that's what I like. I literally took the breathwork class. I'm like, who needs plant medicine? Like, just
It's like the gateway drug.
right? Like this is great. Like, we don't need any other outside substances. It's all in my lungs. What? It's all in my lungs. I love this. It's in my body, so it has to be there for me. And in that way, it can just be
Yeah.
really supportive.
Yeah. And empowering. It's empowering. That's the other thing, is when people realize they can do that, to see, and it's an, oh, I see this light fire up in people's eyes where it's the first time in their lives they have felt empowered on that level, you know. And because what we've been taught for how many thousands of years that, our source is outside of us,
Right.
and that's just the biggest lie ever told. Like, the source is inside you, like you are the source of the source, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I think that's it, is when by doing this kind of work, we're really able to recognize our own internal power and going, this feels good. I want more of it. And then
yeah,
you're starting to recognize what is making me feel out of balance with that. What in my
yeah,
life am I ready to let go of because it's dishonoring instead of honoring? It's contracting
yeah,
instead of expanding,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, and then it's funny that you say that too. I love that you say that, contracting and expanding, because then that also kind of spills over into, like, who's in your life, your environment around you, like who is elevating you, who is like asking you to go down,
Yeah.
and I think that that's really important too. And yeah, breath work really just kind of opens the eyes,
Yeah.
you know, it really
Yeah.
does.
And you hold such a beautiful sacred space.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
I have to give that shout out. It's like, it's not, this isn't my first breathwork course was with you. I was like, oh, she's got it. Like, this is just innately, you're a natural at holding that sacred container. And I love that. I love that. It seems so easy for you.
Thank you. It feels that way. And yeah, it's very guided, I would say. And I really like that because yeah, it's natural to me to kind of bring it from the heart. I'm Filipino. My grandmother's Filipino Hawaiian, and I feel like I'm a very heart-centered person, and I really love holding space for people, and it's something that I discovered I'm really good at. I have really good boundaries,
Yeah.
and it helps me keep a very open container, and so yeah, thank you. I love hearing that. I
Yeah.
receive that. Yeah.
Good. Well, and
Yeah.
I feel like just recognizing as facilitators the boundaries, like when we have good, healthy internal boundaries, we have really good, healthy boundaries for the space and for the
Yeah.
space that we're holding. And just recognizing that, what we cultivate within is what was cultivated without, like in our external environment. And I just love seeing that beautiful reflections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that word. Yeah, it's like your outer world's a reflection of your inner world, and I love that word because it's like it's you reflect I on,
Yes.
and
Yes. Right.
yeah, I just love that word. And I think the more we can see our lives that way, like what is it about this situation that I am feeling, upset about or even happy about, whatever, and what is it showing me, because I think there's such a tendency to become a victim, like that person did this to me,
Yeah.
and I mean, I get we're human. So, sometimes you aren't conscious of that. And like I said, a guy yelled at me on the road. I got really mad about it. And I was like, that guy has the nerve, but then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. I was like, what is it about that that really upsets me? And when I started dissecting it, I'm like, well, I don't like to be treated that way,
Yeah.
you know? And well, where did that come from? Oh, yeah, when I was a kid, I got treated that way, and I started realizing like that's where these feelings are coming from. And the more we do that, the more it's like, and then you shake the energy out, boom, it's done.
It's gone. Right. It's
Yeah,
following the little breadcrumbs back into your past, going, no, I've been trained, I've been cultivated to have these type of trigger responses. And this happens in everyone. Our whole
right.
culture is very much like wants us to be victims so that we're easier to be controlled.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we're all
Absolutely.
triggered all over the place, then it's a lot easier to manipulate society.
Right. And the great news is a lot of people are starting to see that,
Yeah.
and I think there's going to come a time fairly soon where, there's this mass awakening and people are just going to start to be like, oh, wait a minute. You mean money doesn't equal my worthiness?
Right.
Like, oh, yeah, it's a piece of paper. You are worthy, beautiful human being. You're worthy to just be you. You don't have to, it was a hard realization for me, but it was like, I don't have to put on a chef's coat. I don't have to be an entrepreneur. I don't have to be all those things. I just have to be me. And what does that look like? And then you start getting into the real expression and
Yeah.
expressing.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's like, I just want to let all of our listeners know, like, we welcome the transition, the process, the support that you need for integrating and recognizing all that has made you up to this point and recognizing where you want to shift into and knowing that you're not alone. I have so many students who think that they're alone in their healing process. And I'm like, no, there's thousands upon thousands of people waking up right now. And when I say waking up, it's recognizing they've been put in this victimhood mode and
Yeah.
that we can step out of that and into an empowered state and recognize our choice and recognizing our responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And realizing that we have been fed a lie. And that lie is that, like I said, that we are not the source of our own greatness,
Yeah.
and I think I love plant medicine because it showed me that, and I was on that path anyway. It just showed it to me really quickly. But
Mhm.
I think it's a really important mission, right? And I feel like in this like health and wellness space, we're all sort of doing the same thing. We're trying to help raise the frequency of the collective consciousness by, being a guide with people to show them, to shine the light on their greatness, and to say like, hey, you don't need all these stories, stories all these stories that we tell ourselves, and they don't matter. They happened. They all just already happened,
Right.
and so
It's in the
yeah.
past. Let it be in the past.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, sorry. I was to say there's a lot of ways to go back and make that right. There's so many ways. And I feel like you doing Reiki and all your magic, and I do NLP coaching and hypnotherapy, and I love breath work. It's all kind of moving people into that like space maker
yeah,
mode.
right. I think that's where a lot of my shamanic work comes in is like, we're hooking the cords from the past out. We're releasing those cords to going,
Yeah.
that's who you were. That is not who you are right now. We can recreate that. And that's where it's like the NLP and the hypnosis and the time techniques and the Reiki and the shamanic work I do, it all kind of blends together, which makes it really fun. It's just going, how is it going to present for this client? To going, what do they need to let go of the past or let go of their stories? Because it's the stories that bind us.
Yeah. And how beautiful is that? Then now what you're doing is you're using your expression. You've learned all these modalities from someone else's expression, and now you're making it yours and you're showing it to someone. They're going to open up space and make it theirs
Yep.
and show up, and it's like now we're creating these little like, these little like gangs of neurons, ganglions of neurons. How do you,
Yeah,
I don't,
I think
the
that's
ganglion?
right.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
neurons, and we're just connecting them all to make a big giant brain of consciousness, and
I
I
love
just think
that.
it's just I love it too, and I'm like, the more leaving Big Sky and moving to Bozeman was the absolute best thing I could have ever done for my life, because I there's not a whole lot of this in Big Sky. It's more, vacationers and developers and those things. And so having these kinds of conversations has really elevated my experience, and I
I
don't
love
my
that.
and my expression is just being formed. I don't really even sometimes know what that looks like still, and
And that's okay. And I love that too.
yeah,
I'm wondering if there's a listener out there who wants to connect with you for an individual one-on-one session. Are you offering those online or just in person?
I am. Oh, I can do them online. Yes. Yep. I can do Zoom sessions for breath work or hypnotherapy, and in person. And yeah, they can go to my website,
Yeah,
which
we
is,
share that.
yeah, it's Lumin 88.com.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes with any of the other contact information because Alexandria is amazing practitioner and I
Oh, thank
love
you.
the work that she's doing and so excited that you're going to be joining us as a guest presenter on our Soul Rising retreat. She is going to be with us Friday morning to do trance breath work before we head up to play up at Highlight Reservoir. And so we have a 5-day retreat starting June 26th, this 2024 summer in Bozeman, Montana. And we end that retreat on Sunday, June 30th. And they are full days, full experiences. And we've got a lot of ceremony and shamanic and play and experiences all built in. And so if you're interested, definitely check out those show notes for information on the retreat. Experience Montana. So like if you're coming from a warmer climate, I've got to tell you, end of June is like the perfect time to visit Montana. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. We're talking like a chill 70 degrees. Like that's Montana for you. And so we'd love to have you come out and play with us. Reach out if you have questions. And until June, thank you so much, Alexandria, for being on with us today. And I just can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, can I make one mention?
Absolutely.
I am doing a full moon breath work at Wild Wisdom Collective on April 23rd. So I don't, yeah.
Nice. I love that.
So yeah, you can go to my website and sign up there.
Perfect. So that's a local Bozeman so our Bozemanites who are listeners, definitely check that out. If you're nearby, come check it out. It's worth the drive. And I'll be coming back from Ecuador then, so maybe I can sneak it in. I'd love that. And it's such a beautiful space down there at Wild Wisdom. Wild Wisdom is our local metaphysical shop. And so for those of you who are traveling out for a retreat, we'll definitely stop by the store to have some shopping experience as well. So yay, I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so
Oh, thank
grateful.
you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was been a pleasure talking with you today, and I can't wait for all of our things coming together and collaborating.
I'm so excited. Thank you.